Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment of our program is brought to you by Safety Systems. For 20 years, they have been the leader in security systems all across East Tennessee. They also do a bang-up job with entertainment systems. You need to check them out. They do a tremendous job. VFL JJ Surlis is the guy to call. I've used them in my home. I know a lot of people who've used them. If you look around town, you'll see a lot of businesses with that Safety System sticker right in the door. That's because these guys are the best. SafetySystems.com. All right. Ryan is back with us to talk recruiting, and I get questions from time to time about this, and I always have to answer, well, it's supposed to be 25, but it can be a little more. I'm just going to let you do it today. We're just going to have a one-on-one recruiting 101 segment, okay? The Vols have 21 commitments right now, okay? That doesn't mean that they're only able to chase 4 more players, however. The cap is 25, supposedly. 25 in a year. They got 21 now.
Well, so first of all, the important thing to remember in the present time is commitments don't matter. The NCAA doesn't even recognize commitments. You can have 35 commitments if you want, and there's no limit on that. So the bottom line is Tennessee's going to keep taking guys in the short term and figure it out later, especially in such a chaotic year. But yeah, there are always some exceptions, at least because of the way the NCAA allows schools to sort of count scholarships, and they have, for the most part, closed the loopholes recently. We used to hear so much about, Butch Jones did a lot of blue shirting where you're allowed to count.
Well, hang on a second. We'll get to that.
Yeah,
let me ask you, one of the reasons they're going to keep recruiting a lot of guys is, of these 21, there are going to be a lot of them that you don't think wind up in this class.
Yeah.
You're going to have some that we mentioned this last week. It's kind of a kindling strategy.
Right.
Let's get a lot of these 3 stars. They start recruiting. You get momentum. And then when you get some 4 stars later, hey, thanks for helping us, 3-star. You're out.
Yeah.
Tennessee's probably going to do some of that. So these, when you get 21 commitments right now, let's say you have 15 that may make the final cut.
Right.
Some are going to leave you,
and
some you may oust.
Well, and just to look at recent history with what we have to go by for this coaching staff at Tennessee, the last 2 years, Tennessee has had 9 decommitments in the 2020 class, 14 decommitments in the 2019 or in the 2018 class. Obviously, first year, a little more turnover there. So maybe you're not going to see it double digits, maybe, but even if they match last year's with 9 decommitments, there's been 1 so far, and that was Isaac Washington, a guy who's already back in Tennessee's class. So clearly there could be quite a bit of turnover just based on what we've seen the last 2 years.
Okay, and we'll get to blue shirting in a second.
Yeah,
I want to do this in order.
Yeah.
Because it's simpler this way. Back counting, all right? That's a way that Tennessee, you look, it's supposed to be 25 in a year. But somehow they'll get 26 this year, 27. One way they do that is back counting. Explain to people what back counting is and whether or not Tennessee's going to do it this year, and whether or not you even know for sure if they can do it. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah, so the reality is coaches are very secretive about how they handle their numbers. No staff, Nick Saban, Jeremy Pruitt, none of these guys want anybody else to really know how many guys they can sign in a given year. They're worried about other teams using that against them in recruiting, sort of figuring out what they're planning, all that stuff. So it's easier if they just keep it under wraps. So the reality is we don't know. We're all sort of guessing. And the rules they're going by now are only a few years old. So there could be a loophole that hasn't been publicly exploited yet that someone could figure out. That's sort of what happened with blue shirting that we'll maybe get to in a minute. But that's, right now we don't know of any other way to get beyond the 25 limit aside from back counting. That's all we've seen so far. And that is where a midterm enrollee from that class, say this past class, Harrison Bailey, Cooper Mays, any of those guys already on campus that arrived in January, they could be counted to fill an unused spot under the 25 limit from the previous year's class. And in this case, Tennessee came up 1 short at least in this past class. So that left Tennessee with the room to back count 1 player to that class to fill that spot. And that essentially leaves them with one more open spot to count toward the 2020 class as of right now. But that still could be filled. That's why they were in the mix for a guy like Zach Evans late, the 5-star running back, who just recently went to TCU. That's why they're still in the mix for a guy like JT Daniels, the USC quarterback commitment, because they still have 1 spot to maybe play with if they have the right guy.
So basically you get 25 a year. They got 24 back in February. The December-February combined was 24, which allows them to say sign 26 this coming year and then count 1 of them back last year. So it would be 26, but 1 of them is really from last year to fill up the 24 and make it 25.
Or they could add a guy still this year and then only be able to sign 25.
Right. Okay. Got it? And then there's blue shirting, which supposedly was done away with. That's one of the things that's frustrated me is people will ask me, well, how many can they get to? And I'm like, well, look, the NCAA wants it to be 25. Back counting fudges a little bit. There's no more blue shirting. Only at Tennessee there has been blue shirting. Explain.
So
what is blue shirting and why has it still been here?
Yeah, so blue shirting, as we had to cover a few times in recent years because Tennessee did so much of it under Butch Jones at times. You can sort of, it was a loophole that came about years ago by mistake, essentially. A coach put a walk-on scholarship in his first year or two on campus, but to do that, the NCAA required them to count that player toward a signing class. Coaches eventually figured out, hey, if we do this on purpose and treat a guy as a walk-on throughout the recruiting process and then put him on scholarship when he gets here, we can count that player ahead to the next class and sort of get around the 25 limit. So the NCAA closed that loophole, essentially. The new rule is very cut and dry, and in reality, it's 25 new scholarship players per year, period. So that pretty much closed that loophole. But when this rule went into effect, Tennessee had blue shirted a couple guys the previous year. So essentially, to get to 25 the past couple of years, they've been having to blue shirt a guy or two. So that's why you've seen Tennessee continue to have to worry about that. They're sort of catching up, though, where maybe now we won't have to see that in the future. Eventually, it'll probably come off the books, sort of, and Tennessee will be back to normal, and you won't have to hear that blue shirt word for a while.
All right, so bottom line, for people who ask, how many can they sign this year? And we were talking earlier, there are people out there that say, oh, they can get to 28. They can get to 30. It's probably going to be 25 or 26, correct?
That's as far as our understanding of this goes. And again, it's a fairly new rule. There always could be something we're not seeing. 25 is the general number. And then if Tennessee doesn't add a guy like JT Daniels this offseason to fill that spot going into this season, then you could maybe back count one to this past year to squeeze in a 26. But anything beyond 26, if they can do it, we're not sure how they could pull it off.
Okay, and of the 21 commitments they have now, as most of you know, some of those could go somewhere else, or Tennessee could ask them to go somewhere else as they get better commitments down the road. Just a part of college football. Recruiting 101, I hope that explained it for folks. When we come back, though, let's take a look at this recruiting class. Last week, we talked about on the show, Tennessee's in a good position to finish in the top 5 nationally. Then I talked to Ryan. Then I dug into the numbers. Maybe not. We'll discuss. Come on back.